When compared to China, Europe, USA, the number of battery vehicles or electric vehicles has been extremely low when compared to the other vehicles, other countries. So, but the pace is faster pace because the government has launched several innovative schemes related to this segment. So, until October 2022, there were 17 lakh electric vehicles. There were 17 lakh electric vehicles have been sold, constituting 0.6% of all registered vehicles. Of the registered electric vehicles, 97% are two-wheelers and three-wheelers. 97% of the vehicles. Okay. So try to understand the data. Out of the total electric vehicles, okay, electric vehicles constitute just 0.6% of the total registered vehicles. And among this 0.6% of all registered vehicles, 97% of the vehicles are nothing but two and three wheelers. Two-wheelers include e-scooters, e-mopeds, and three-wheelers include e-autos, e-carts, and e-rickshaws. E-rickshaws are generally powered by lead-acid batteries that are less efficient than the standard lithium batteries. Generally, whatever the e-rickshaws we see are less able. So, powered by lead-acid batteries that are less efficient than the standard lithium batteries. In this note, we exclude e-rickshaws from our analysis as they do not have similar concerns as electrical vehicles powered by lithium-ion batteries. So, e-rickshaws are not included into this EV or electronic vehicle system because they carry the battery called as lead-acid batteries. So, lithium-ion batteries used to be considered as the standard batteries. That is why these e-vehicles used to constitute that segment. India aims to reach 30% sales share for electric vehicles by 2030. So, what is the aim of India? So, currently there are by 2022 October, the percentage of the electric vehicles is 0.6%, whereas in the case of by the year 2030, we can aspire 30% of the vehicles should be from electric vehicles. 30% of vehicles. So, by various reports suggest that 2 and 3 vehicle segments in India will lead the transition to electric mobility by 2030. So, various reports suggest that two-wheeler and three-wheeler segments in India will lead the transition to electric mobility by the year 2030. The International Energy Agency projects that 2 and 3-wheelers and 4-wheeler EVs comprise 48% and 11% of the total vehicle sales in 2030 respectively. So, by 2030, according to the International Energy Agency, globally 2 and 3-wheelers will constitute 48% of the total vehicles, whereas in the case of 4-wheelers will constitute 11% of the total vehicles. Similarly, Niti Aayog estimates EV sales share of 2-wheeler and 3-wheeler at 86% and 4-wheeler is going to be occupied just 13%. Try to understand the data now. As of October 2022 data, the share of the electric vehicles is just 0.6% of the total registered vehicles, point number 1. Point number 2 is, among these registered vehicles, are you getting my point? Among these registered vehicles, the entire dimensions can be seen in a, by 2030, India is planning to contribute 30% of the registered vehicles must come from the electric vehicles, so EVs. And second, India will lead a transition in electric mobility. The International Energy Agency is projecting that globally 48% of two-wheeler and three-wheelers will be from what we can call two-wheelers, and whereas in the case of 11% of the vehicles will be four-wheelers. So, Niti Aayog estimates that EV sales share of 2 or 3-wheelers at 86%, two-wheeler or three-wheelers will be 86% and 4-wheelers are at 13%. So, this is the Vahan portal, Ministry of Road Transport and Highway. So, where 4-wheeler contribution. So, here you can see financial year 2015-16 and 2020-21. So, here you can see India. So, just 700 electric vehicles, 4-wheelers, 700 4-wheeler electric vehicles were there in India by the year 2015-16. Okay, India, 700 vehicles were there. By the year 2021-22, you can see these vehicles are 17,000 vehicles. 17,000 vehicles. Okay, coming to the let us see China. 92,000 2015-16 and 12,31,000 in China. So with this you can say China's four-wheeler electric vehicles share is extremely great even in 2015-16. So the surprising fact is even by 2021-22 our data is not sufficient to reach the data of 2015-16. To understand the difference in cost of owning an electric vehicle compared to owning a petrol vehicle, it is useful to look at the combined cost of the initial upfront price and lifetime operating cost. So, to understand the difference in cost of owning. So, generally just try to understand owning a electric vehicle and owning a petrol vehicle, which is best. If the government subsidies are not available, try to understand the crux. If the government subsidies are not available, then petrol vehicle is much suitable, much cheaper than the electric vehicles. To promote the electric vehicles, as the government of India is giving so many subsidies, either in terms of power tariff or in terms of fame, okay, or in terms of other dimensions, these government vehicles, these electric vehicles are much powerful and much stronger than that of the, much costlier than the petrol vehicles. Electric vehicles are costly. Maintenance cost or manufacturing. But as the government is giving huge incentives and giving much greater offer, particularly with reference to this segment called as what we can call this segment, like how these are going to provide. Okay, so for example, as manufacturing, GST's concessions, by altogether the cost of the EVs has come to normal, has come to affordability. Otherwise, the cost of the electric vehicles is much higher than the cost of the petrol vehicles, and the cost of the electric vehicles, maintenance of the electric vehicles is much higher than the normal vehicles. That is the main clear-cut demarcation. Compares the cost under some broad assumptions. We assume the life of a four-wheeler vehicle to be 1,50,000 kilometers and of a two-wheeler at 50,000 kilometers, and use the current price structure of petrol and electricity in Delhi. In the absence of any tax or subsidy, petrol vehicles are cheaper than electric vehicles. That is than petrol vehicles, try to understand, than the petrol vehicles, than the electric vehicles, petrol vehicles are much cheaper. Petrol vehicles are much cheaper. However, the high tax on petrol, subsidy on domestic electricity, lower registration fee and road tax for electric vehicles, and upfront subsidy for two-wheeler electric vehicles under FAME 2 together make the lifetime cost of EVs lower than that of the petrol vehicles. Just try to understand, now if you want to buy Honda Unicorn, the cost of the Honda Unicorn is roughly around 1,30,000 or 1,40,000. Roughly, I am not pretty sure. Okay, roughly around 1,50,000. But whereas in the case of Ola S-Pro, okay, or Ola electric vehicle or Ether electric vehicle, which are available at around 1 lakh rupees. Why that price is coming? Because the government is giving huge subsidy, upfront subsidies. Upfront subsidies means promoting the manufacturer with various benefits. Why government is constantly promoting the electric vehicles, we will discuss it. The reason is electrification of the transport sector can provide long-term benefits by addressing three major issues. What are those? Local air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions and energy. What are the three benefits that are going to be benefited by the electric vehicles? So a society or a country can get three types of benefits from this segment. What are the three benefits we can see? Number one, local air pollution. What is that, Nana? We can control the local air pollution. And greenhouse gas emissions. The concentration of the greenhouse gases will be extremely lower. And energy security. This energy security can also come down to the normalcy. So these are the three important concepts we can see with reference to this area. So electrification of the transport sector can provide long-term benefits by addressing three major issues: local air pollution, greenhouse gas emission, and energy security. So exhaust emissions from IC, internal combustion engine vehicles, led to local air pollution. For example, the contribution from vehicles to Delhi's particulate matter air pollution was estimated at 41% in 2018. In contrast, EV do not have any exhaust emissions. Electric vehicles will not at all release any exhaust emissions, will not release any type of exhaust emissions. I hope you understand the concept. So electric vehicles will contribute immensely. For the local greenhouse gas emission, they try to reduce the local air pollution. The emissions contain greenhouse gases which contribute to climate change. So first one is local air pollution. Number two, greenhouse gas emissions. In 2019, the transport sector accounted for 13% of the total GHG emissions from Indian energy sector, of which 1/6 each were by 2, 3 and 4-wheel vehicles. So, total greenhouse gases emission contribution from the transport sector is 13%. Okay. So, this is equally distributed, that has been contributed by 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers and 3-wheelers. A shift to EVs will help improve both ambient and quality and reduce harmful greenhouse gas emissions. However, the overall emissions of an electric vehicle depend on the source of electricity used to charge its battery. In India, 70% of electricity generation is based on coal. So, do you think because of the electric vehicles shifting from the IC, internal combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles, do you think all the air pollution is going to be solved? Certainly not. Why? Because from which power source you are going to generate, from what is the main power source you are going to generate is the most crucial factor. So 70% of India's energy comes from the coal, as generation from based on the coal. As the energy is coming from the coal, so as you are getting the energy, automatically you will try to get it from the multiple. So you are indirectly promoting the air pollution. You are indirectly promoting the air pollution. So the pollution cannot be seen here, but pollution can be seen in some other places. I hope you understand the concept. So remember, electric vehicles, when electric vehicles are best, whenever the electricity generation of your house is from the non-fossil fuel based. For example, if you look at a particular segment like non-fossil fuel based energy, if you are getting, so that energy is one of the most important segment, non-fossil fuel based energies. So that is how you can see the dynamics. Okay. For example, you are having a Ola, you are running a Ola S1 Pro. Okay. So this Ola S1 Pro vehicle, which you are having, so if it is not providing you, if you are using solar rooftop for your energy production, you are not using, you are not connected, you are not getting electricity from the grid, definitely your energy efficiency will be extremely higher than the other areas. Your energy efficiency will be extremely higher than the other areas. So you should remember that particular specific segment. Coal-fired power plants were responsible for about 44% of total carbon emissions in 2019. And shifting to cleaner energy sources of fuel such as solar and wind energy may help address this issue. Energy security refers to the ability of a country to ensure uninterrupted energy supply at affordable prices. So energy security refers to the ability of a country to ensure uninterrupted energy supply to affordable prices. So uninterrupted energy must be there, and that uninterrupted energy must be available at affordable prices, which has been mentioned under the Sustainable Development Goals. So in the name of cleaner energy, you should not give more, you should not keep the energy prices at high. So if you are keeping the prices at high in the name of solar energy or wind energy, people will not adapt to that particular energy. So if you can able to give the energy sources in a regular dimension, I hope you understand the concept. Due to rising vehicle ownership and road transport usage, the energy demand in the transport sector has grown 3.5 times. India is heavily reliant on imports to meet its energy needs. Okay. So India is, so for example, if you look at the energy scenario, so whatever the fossil fuels we are trying to import, either petrol or crude oil, whatever the fuels, so for which we are spending how much? 94 billion US dollars we are spending for importing fossil fuels. A high import bill also results in current account being in deficient, which was 1.2% of its GDP. What is that? Which was 1.2% of its GDP. So a high import bill also results in current account being in deficient, which was 1.2% of its GDP. If a significant segment of road transport shifts to electric vehicles, they will depend on electricity as the energy source instead of oil. If the electricity needs can be generated from indigenous coal and renewables, the move to EVs would help reduce India's import dependency and decrease its current account deficit. I hope what is current account deficit? Deficit is nothing but how much amount of balance. Okay. So because of heavy prices on importing crude oil or fossil fuels, our current account deficit is happening, which is 1.2% of India's GDP. Which is not a positive thing for any growing economy. The attainment of such results depend on which type of vehicles, 2 or 3 vehicles you are getting electrified. In 2019, 2 or 3 vehicles constituted about 80% of the total vehicles in the country, but accounted for only 21% of the total fuel consumption in road transport. The remaining 71% of energy demand came from the cars and heavy duty vehicles such as buses. So 80% of the total vehicles, 80% of the total vehicles in the country, okay, are 2 and 3 wheelers. Okay. Out of which 21% of the, they consume only 21% of energy. They consume energy, vehicles, share. Came from cars and heavy duty vehicles such as buses. Whereas in the case of 79% of the, try to understand, 79% of the energy is consumed by 4-wheelers, which occupy 21% of the total vehicles, which are nothing but 4-wheelers, So this is the scenario of the electric vehicles in India. This is how you can see how the electric vehicles are playing a crucial role in this segment. How the electric vehicles are playing a crucial role in this segment. Next, what are the schemes that have been launched by the Union government for making the, for promoting the electric vehicles? For manufacturing as well as for purchasing, or for promoting the manufacturing, for promoting the purchase of the these vehicles. Number 1 is FAME. What is FAME? Faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. Faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles, manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles. It offers financial incentives for purchasing electric vehicles and developing charging stations. What it offers? It offers 2 things. Number 1, it will help to the people, financial assistance. It will give subsidies to the people. Why? Because we are already paying money for importing fossil fuels. If we can shift that money to these people, so automatically 2 advantages can be seen. Number 1, reduction on dependence on fossil fuels will be happen. Number 2, this percentage, it will definitely have a extraordinary greenhouse gases emission can be reduced. So double it. So FAME 2 will be having 2 advantages. Number 1, 2 things. Number 1, government will promote for the purchase of electric vehicles. Number 2, it also facilitates to establish the charging stations. Production linked incentives scheme for automotive industry, PLI, production linked incentive scheme for automotive industry, boosting domestic manufacturing electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles and associate components. production linked incentive scheme for automotive industry, boosting domestic manufacturing of EVs, fuel cell vehicles and associated components. And national program on advanced chemistry cell battery storage. PLI scheme to promote domestic manufacturing of EV batteries. National program on advanced chemistry, national program on advanced chemistry cell battery storage. And GST reduction. Reductions in GST has become very popular thing, particularly in terms of this segment called as in terms of the segment called as this electric vehicles. So normally all the vehicles used to be charged with 28% of the GST, but whereas in the case of these vehicles, these electric vehicles are charged just only with 5%. Income tax concession, deduction of up to 1.5 lakh for the interest paid on financing an electric vehicle. Draft battery swapping policy, replacing depleted batteries with charged ones at swapping stations. So in swapping, so removing the battery and keeping it somewhere, okay, and like cylinder refills. So battery swapping policy has also been launched by the Union government for promoting the electric vehicles. Okay, so charging infrastructure guidelines. So the main biggest problem is, so bottleneck of this electric vehicles EVCs, there is no sufficient infrastructure for power charging stations. So battery stations are not having efficient infrastructure is not there for EVs. Okay, here charging infrastructure guidelines. Availability of different types of charging connectors at public charging stations. Availability of different types of charging connectors, connectors at public charging stations. ISRO, ISRO is also playing a crucial role. Lithium cell technology, transfer of indigenous lithium cell technology to industries by ISRO. Okay. State EV policies, concessional EV charging tariff, road and registration tax exemptions by several states including Delhi, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Telangana. Structure, an electric vehicle battery is usually a rechargeable lithium battery. So what is the structure of these lithium ion batteries or batteries? So generally we used to call it as lithium ion battery. So not all batteries are lithium ion batteries. That structure of the batteries we will see. An electric vehicle battery is usually a rechargeable lithium battery. It is structurally different from portable electronic batteries used in tablets, phones and laptops. The EV battery contains a series of small cells. So likewise several cells will be kept and all these cells will be connected jointly, okay, independently, and all these cells will be connected to a main target. The EV battery contains a series of small cells grouped in a module. Several modules are then tightly assembled to make a traction battery pack. So what is the capacity and stability? Why these batteries are, what is the capacity of these batteries and how these batteries are going to play a crucial role? Commonly used lithium chemistries are nickel, manganese, cobalt, NMC. So one type of battery is we call it as NMC. What stands for NMC? Nickel, manganese, cobalt, and lithium ferrophosphate, LFP, lithium ferrophosphate. The proportion of these elements decides the energy capacity of a battery pack, which is measured in kilowatt hour. A mix of high energy density metals such as cobalt and nickel can pack more energy per kilogram than that of the LFP. Okay, so a mix of high energy density metals. So cobalt and nickel can pack more energy, but so why don't, as these can able to store more amount of energy, but why it is not giving you that much of a result? Because they cannot able to modulate or influence with the external heat or external temperatures. So you might have seen while charging your mobile of your lithium ion battery, so if you are using fast charger, the phone will heat very quickly. I hope you understand the concept. Why it is heating? Because of the fast charging. So if the battery is not having battery management system properly, the phone may blast. This cadmium nickel battery, okay, so NMC, nickel manganese cobalt oxide battery, because cobalt and nickel are the minerals which can pack more energy per kilogram and increase energy capacity. Lithium ferrophosphate batteries are not as efficient as NMC ones, but can withstand higher temperatures when charged. Pricing. The cost of the different lithium batteries depends upon the pricing of raw minerals. In 2022, on an average, LFP cells were 20% cheaper than NMC ones due to the absence of cost elements like cobalt and nickel. Lithium batteries, in contrast, cells were 20% cheaper. Why these lithium ion batteries are very much popular? Because they are 20% cheaper than NMC, because nickel, manganese, cobalt are costly minerals. Due to the high prices of the metals involved, batteries constitute about 1/4 of the cost of four-wheeler and about 1/3 of the two-wheeler. So, for example, if you look at the four-wheeler, if it is having 15 lakh rupees, 15 lakh, okay, 1/4 of the four-wheeler cost comes from the battery itself. Whereas in the case of Ola S Pro, for example, if it is 1 lakh, 33,000 rupees comes from, for the you need